Welcome to the internet, my friend. How can I help you?
We're online.
All systems go!
And in your face. You are listening to the golden microphones of the IMC Radio.
Yes, you
News,
are.
Opinions, and your calls.
Well, soon we'll have your calls. We'll also have you on Facebook.
You gotta see that big picture.
Sometimes if you stop the machine, then you realize, whoa.
You know, you have to have some foresight and think about what kind of an effect is that going to have on air travel.
How important is aviation?
How important is aviation to you? Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Howie Marlin, a.k.a. Max Gross, here with John King Roberts. Hey, Johnny boy. Say
How
hey,
you doing
John.
up there, Howie?
Hey, John.
Hey, what's happening?
And we're hanging out waiting for Radek, although I think he's in transit, and I don't think he'll be able to make it with us tonight. But greetings, everyone, for episode 58 of Plane Talk. And it's Monday, February 5th in the evening. And John and I are going to talk about a few things, see if we can't put a nice little show together. One of the reasons why we wanted to speak together, even though Radek isn't with us this evening, is that there's some pretty timely stuff that's been going on, and we thought we'd talk about that. So, John boy, how you been?
Pretty good. Things are pretty good down here. We're having a pretty nice winter down here in Florida. I hate to say, it's been a little cooler than they like it down here, but it's been really beautiful. Anyone that complains about the weather in Florida should maybe go up to the vineyard and hang out with Howie for a few days. You know, but it's been. I'm sure all the people that are flying down here, all the small stuff, Howie, they're not cooking in their planes before they take off. You know how hot it can be on the ground when it's 90 degrees and humid.
Oh God, yeah.
And I'll be doing my next Monday. I'll be doing my second VMC meeting at Lantana Airport.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. Let's just say, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for dialing in, and certainly appreciate you being here. Yeah, John, you started working with your group down around Lantana, and you went to one last meeting. Was that right, or have you been to two?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Radek opened the first one up, and then that was a couple months ago. And then last month I soloed, so to speak. And next Monday I'll have my second meeting, which is the third meeting at Lantana, which is unfortunately under the president's umbrella. They're so close to where Trump usually flies in a lot. They're having a hard time. So, in fact, he's here right now, so they're closed. They can't even do pattern work. So it's been tough for them. So it's nice to try to get the pilots together, and meanwhile, while they're grounded, so to speak, we can talk about safety and have a good meeting and share some ideas and share some knowledge.
Well, the interesting thing is, although they can't do pattern work, you can fly in and out of that local airport as long as it's IFR and it's scheduled. You have to put it into the system, has to be cleared, and you cannot vary from that your course. You can't vary at all. You're going from point to point. You've got a departure time and an arrival time, and they are wicked strict about that. Oh, yeah. No,
they are.
We're familiar with that around here, of course.
When the president used to come into the vineyard, did they have to stop at New Bedford to get cleared? Was there a place they had to go to first before they were allowed to go into the vineyard? Even though they're scheduled on a flight plan?
It would be gateway to gateway. Had to be gateway airport.
Oh.
Had to be a gateway airport with TSA screening.
I see.
You leave from a gateway airport, you file, you fly, you land, park, you get out, and there's the FBI Secret Service TSA booth, the tent outside, and they walk you in, they walk you through. Of course, leaving the airport, you would think there would be less scrutiny. No. What was really interesting during that period of time, matter of fact, when with the Obama stay, we got to know the Secret Service guys really well, and the running joke was we all knew who the Secret Service guys were. So what's so secret about that?
Yeah, what's so secret about that? Yeah,
there they are. And seriously, the nicest group of people. They knew that it was a royal pain in the ass for everybody, and for us hangar owners, we're hangar tenants, and we're going in and out behind the gate. And me, I was working on my airplane at the time, so I'm going in out 2 or 3 times a day. Man, did I get to know these people. Actually, it got to the point they would have to escort you from the gate to your aircraft, right? I mean, they literally wouldn't let you wander around alone. And for hangar attendants, we would go through, and then they would give us a ride in the golf cart around and into the hangar. And then when we needed to leave, we would call them. They'd come pick us up. And
okay, I see. Yeah. And I'm sure they know that most people are doing the right thing, and they're going by the rules and regs, but they got to look for the cracks. They got to look for the cracks. But anyway, getting back to the VMC down here at Lantana, it's been a lot of fun. And I know EAA is I'm sure they're very pleased about how the membership is growing. And we just try to get more people involved, IMC and VMC.
How are you doing it? How are you trying to get more people involved?
Well, I know that we had a blast out from the FAA. Radek has something magic that he does, and once we have a meeting, you tell people, just tell their friends, and we let the FBO know, and we're trying to put up some promo, and I'll email them. I just emailed them recently just to let them know the meeting is around the corner, and I'm new at kind of coordinating this, so I'm just going to go with the flow and see what happens.
Well, that's cool. The reason why I brought that up is there are a whole mess of ways that you can market and promote something. And when it comes to something as a very, this narrow niche with this very, narrow vertical of interest, promoting it within the gate is obvious. So within the fences. So you're going around to the local hangar tenants, anybody that is a resident there, and that would be the first way to go. And then, of course, the local schools that have flying curriculum. Yeah. That would be definitely the way to go. First, of course, the flying schools that are on campus, and then to go to the other local airports that are within, a 10, 15-mile proximity, letting them know, of course. But I went so far as to put up posters in the shopping centers. Because
that's,
talk about outside the fence, right? And I got a few emails from people, so... mostly here with what I'm doing because of the seasonality of where I live. There's just not a lot of people who are aviators, who are year-rounders. Listen, on our tarmac, right now, you drive out now, you taxi out, there is not a single plane on the tarmac, John. Not a single plane. Come July, there will be 200 tied down and... 50 or more on the grass, a bunch of helicopters. It's amazing because we have a section for the private jet long-term parking. Well, there'll be, 6 or 8 of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
But
and there were 5 flight schools at Lantana. I mean, it's a small little GA, but it's packed. It's got some history, including a helicopter school.
And what's the name of the restaurant?
There actually isn't a restaurant at that airport.
No,
there's one across the street. No, they don't have their own on property restaurant, which is surprising.
I just realized I was thinking about Palm Bay.
This is, but there's 1,000 restaurants within a mile.
Yeah,
so anyone that comes in, I'm sure they there's a good one right across the street. Radek and I had a nice lunch there. But again, getting back to what EAA's doing with the IMC clubs, what they've done with the taking a great organization and just really launching it even further into the around the country and bringing VMC into it was a great idea. I love it. And it's interesting that the scenarios are a lot different. Naturally, IMC and VMC are two different things, but they're similar. There's a lot of parallels,
Oh, gosh.
But that scenario we had about the tow bar, that was very interesting, if you know what I mean.
Now, remind everybody
about that.
Yeah.
We had a great scenario where a plane took off and the tow bar was still hanging off the nose wheel, And it was a lot of fun. You should hear what the guys came up with. What do you do? What do you not do? Do you tell the pilot? What happens if you tell the pilot? And that's why these meetings are awesome. Everyone walks away scratching their head, going, "Geez, I wouldn't have thought of that." You know.
And I'm sure some of you listeners are laughing at yourselves. Now there are tow bars, and then there are tow bars. I have one we call it a Joe bar because my buddy Joe made it, and it's just a little thing that you know in my Piper. It's just a couple of teeth that sit down on top of the main gear in the front, and you pull it. But then you've got folks with powered tugs, and there's a story about somebody taking off with a gas tug still attached.
Oh, jeez!
And it's like, I'm sorry, I am sorry.
Well, what surprised me is one of the pilots at our meeting is a controller for many years. And I thought that was a rather unusual thing. And he said, no, I've seen that a half a dozen times.
Which
it's not that uncommon.
And I'm going to tell
you. That is a blind spot when you're in the pilot seat. But,
it's a blind spot. That's absolutely true. And, talking about blind spots, I'm like I'm a 500-hour pilot, right? So I'm, not quite at the too fat and comfortable length of time.
That's right.
So
they say that's about 7, 8, 9.
I still walk around and I do a preliminary walk to see if I left a coffee on the wing, right? Stuff like that.
Right.
And
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then because I have heard of people leaving iPads. You put them on. You get into the airplane. You put the iPad on the top of the canopy. And then, I got to go out, and you go in, you go out, and you go in, and meanwhile, the iPad is still on top. That hasn't happened to me, but I've heard of that. But certainly making sure you walk around to make sure that there's nothing for the obvious reasons. But anyway, that's pretty cool.
I mean, after the checklist, you really should you really just step back and just look at the big picture, get outside the box for a minute and say, wait a minute. Everything look okay,
The big troubles, of course, are when you get a number of experienced pilots in the airplane, and everybody is thinking that everybody is on top of things, and because of your chatter and your rush to go, you forget. And there's a great little story where my brother came to visit, and he's a pilot, and so we get up in the Cherokee, and as soon as we take off, there's whack, 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 whack on the fuselage, and I know exactly what it is. And I turned to him and I said, "What part of seatbelt did you not get when I said seatbelt?" And he looked at me, and he shrugged his shoulder. He goes, And I said, because he had a jacket on, and the jacket, I thought he had the seatbelt on underneath his jacket.
Right.
Well, he had left the little tongue in my Cherokee on the right side. The connector
was slapping against
the latch side is on the left, but the little tongue part is on the right, and it was hanging out the door. He shut the door, so that was flapping. Yeah,
really?
So, we were in the pattern.
Yeah, the funny things that happen. Yeah.
Oh, dude, please.
But
come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've all done it. But one of the things that we all haven't done, and this is the major topic of the day, we may have a more abbreviated podcast than normal, but John and I decided that we would soldier on tonight, even though Radek couldn't make it, because I brought up the subject of Roy Halladay. And first, a couple of things. There's this... We participate in pretty rarefied air, literally and figuratively. I mean, not a lot of people have airplanes. We're a very small population, and people have their preconceived notions of us. Of course, everybody's rich, and even people like the John and I, who are we're getting by, but for me, things have changed, and things may get a little weirder.
We're basically paycheck to paycheck kind of guys.
Well, pretty much, and but then you've got folks who they've got discretionary income. Thank God. Thank you all very much for your interests in aviation, and some folks have really taken to the Icon, which is just one of the most tricked out float plane dealies or seaplanes or whatever you want to call it, and I've been in them. I have not flown in one, but I've been in plenty of Sea Rays. So I basically, I get.
And for those of you, you want to let them know how it's a light sport category as well.
Thank you. Yes, thank
yeah.
you. And the point being with this Icon, earlier this summer, and some of you may have heard in an earlier podcast, my wife is at the beach with some friends, and she calls me furious, telling me that there is a guy flying an airplane up and down the beach about 100 feet over everybody on the beach and scaring the living shit out of them. And John, I called Icon to find out if they knew who the hell was down here. And they did. They knew who was here. And I explained to them that they're doing, whoever's piloting that airplane is not doing anybody a favor, because all he was doing was scaring and pissing people off. And sure enough, they contacted him. Him. Yeah. And so the thing is, hot dogging and showing off, I mean, Yeah,
that's a recipe for that. Yeah, you're not going to your number's going to come up eventually if you continue that. Like the no old pilots, no bold pilots. No old bold pilots. That whole expression.
Well, the one expression you don't want to hear is hold my beer.
Yeah, really. And I wondered too, if you're in like an Icon, which is can land on the water, if you have a kind of false sense of security. And that if you're near the water, buzzing around the vineyard or somewhere where there's water, thinking I can go 10 feet above the water, because what's going to happen? I maybe pull the power back and I'll be on the water. I wonder if there's a false sense of security where you feel like you can buzz really extra low.
You can't do that, John. Have you put any time in a float plane? Have you spent any time?
No, absolutely not. No, I've done none. I'm just wondering, just because you feel like you can land on water. Do you feel like you can fly low, although it's not, you're not supposed to be doing?
The answer is hell no. The answer is hell no. First of all, unfortunately, I was down at Sun and Fun. I put a couple of hours in a cub with floats, and I was going for my wet rating. I couldn't get my third hour in. I got called away, actually, to do IMC radio at the Sun and Fun radio. So the bottom line is a schedule change pulled me out of the airplane. But the point being, John, no. Just think of this: if you're flitting about and you're doing what, you're 110 or something, right? You're
right.
Doing But even if you get down around stall speed, and if you're going to be above the water, what do you think is going to happen to your airplane if you put it down and you are not at stall speed? What do you think is going to happen when the floats make contact with the water? What happens?
Oh, you could tear them off if you're not careful.
Well,
right?
of course.
I would think.
Well, of course, but the aircraft would lurch forward and down, and pitch pull.
Oh, okay, right. You flip right over. That's right.
Oh my God, yes. So the answer is
Yeah,
no,
that's right.
not at all. A landing is a landing is a landing, and
yeah.
You need to purposefully, and of course with a float plane, there's several stages. Getting on the step, right, and then getting down off the step when you land as well. So you do need to pay extra attention, and that's obviously one of the things that Roy wasn't doing. For those of you that aren't familiar, he was an MLB pitcher for the Blue Jays, and then the Phillies. Like a Cy Young Award winner, right?
Cy Young Award winner.
Here it is.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And the guy was blessed, and he had an Icon, which is awesome. And I'm sure it was just like the coolest thing ever. But if I just want to say liquor, speed, opiates, antidepressant, sleep aid, dude, in his blood. Okay, guys, so you're all sitting down. Listen, depression is a multicolored thing, and you can fly if you have depression, as long as you're looked after. And
right.
There's certain medications you can fly with, but I just want to go down this list. you're familiar with opiates, Oxycontin, oxycodone,
Oh,
things like that, right?
right.
Well, they found
Oh, yeah,
Dilaudid.
yeah.
They found Dilaudid. And Dilaudid in the hierarchy of intensity is right underneath. Now I'm blocking. It is like one of the most potent prescription medications that you can get, as far as the
Right,
opiates
yeah.
are concerned, right below fentanyl. So it's amazing. He had Dilaudid in his system, and he had Ambien, the sleep medication. By the way, John, Ambien will put you into a hypnotic state, and you can go to sleep on Ambien, and then you will, not consciously, but you will wake up, and people have been known to drive and cook and sew
Really?
and do physical things and have absolutely no recollection of it. None whatsoever.
Wow.
It's severe.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
but he also
but
had...
he had a cocktail of it.
Well, he could,
Yeah.
he was also prescribed an ADHD medication, Adderall. Adderall is amphetamine. It's speed. It's like crack. No, it's not the most potent form, or what crack is, among the most potent forms of amphetamine that you can get. But it's a prescription form of speed. And then he had liquor, so he was drinking. He had Adderall. He had Ambien. He had Dilaudid. He was on Prozac. Seriously, are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah, and to go flying, my God,
I
to
mean-
get in a plane.
That was probably
Yeah.
why he got in the plane. He felt so loopy and high.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, boy.
I mean, what's tragic is his issue with it. But I mean, to get into an airplane like that, my God, that's not going to have a happy ending ever.
Oh, come on, man. And who the hell knows what he was doing, but he did a 45-degree bank into the water at 200 feet. 200
Yeah.
feet, 45-degree turn at 200 feet.
Yeah, that's not going to. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell you that most of us have spent enough time on the stick. It's like, yeah, is that severe? There's people yanking, cranking as you're pulling out at 200 feet, and there's stuff that I get it. But look at what this guy was doing. He was showboating.
Yeah.
And he was wasted. And it's just such a nightmare that would happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the nightmare that he would die, the nightmare that putting other people at risk, and
Now, was he alone? Do you know?
yeah,
do we
he
know?
was the only one in there.
He was alone. Yeah, because that's just a two-seater, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the LSA. It's 2 seats.
And one of the can
Yeah,
you
that's-
imagine
yeah,
this? You
that's
ready for
unbelievable.
this? They believe that he did not die at impact, and that there were people standing around when that airplane went in the water, and nobody went to help him.
Really?
Nope.
That he may have survived the initial crash and could have been possibly.
Yeah, the blunt head
he was
trauma
scooped
and the chest. It could have, and I pray to God it knocked him unconscious, and the death was by drowning, so that was
Yeah.
ultimately what did him in. But in my line of work, I am a LADC 1, a alcohol and drug counselor, and I work at our hospital on the substance use disorder team, and so I deal with folks that come in from overdoses. Not only folks that come in, wanting to get straight off of booze, off of alcohol and shit. They,
Right.
Benzos, Xanax, Valium, those things, and then of course the opiates. Most of us get lured. Wait a minute. Most of us. I'd say the people in professional circles don't go out and decide that they want to become a junkie one day. What they do, they get hurt. They get break their
Right.
clavicle. They get a rotator cuff, like I got done, and your local doctor throws you a jar with 60 Percocet in them, and says, here, take these when you need them. And this was all created over the physician's satisfaction index where as technology got to the point where people could rate their doctors and rate their treatment, and people were rating the service based on how happy they were, and they were based on how happy they were with their service based on how little pain they felt. Well, I hate to break it to you folks, but pain is God's way of telling you that things are going on. And that, now I don't want people to be tortured, don't get me wrong, but doctors started prescribing these opiates in volume because of a number of things, and one of them were these surveys, where if you wanted a happy patient, you made them comfortable. Yeah. And how do you make them comfortable? Giving them these medications, which... But that's when the opiates were first put out, Percocet, Percodan, Oxycontin, those things, the pharmaceutical companies said, based on their studies, that they weren't found to be addictive. Well, based on their studies, they weren't being found to be addictive because they excluded the length of time, duration, and the amount, and they made it so that the results indicated that. But in reality, and of course, now we know that it doesn't take long at all. And don't forget, folks, the very first one you take, the very first time you take an Oxy, Percocet, Percodan, one of those things, you will never get as high as you will that first time. And I'm sure some of you are going, now, wait a minute, I took one of these for my shoulder. I didn't get high. That's correct. When you are in pain, the medication works and the purpose it was created, and that was to mitigate the pain, and you don't get goofy high because the medication is addressing the discomfort. Well, what if you don't have any discomfort and you take one of these? You catch the buzz. You get that, you with me? And so once you do that, you like it and you'll want to do more. Well, the problem is that the body builds up resistance. Matter of fact, it builds up resistance with the first one you take and gets more and more severe. So anyway, the bottom line is this. People get dependent, and things are being addressed now. Doctors around the country, they're being watched, and now it's known. Also, the pharmacies now are talking to each other. So, you used to be able to go doctor shopping. John, do you ever go doctor shopping?
No, I haven't gone doctor shopping.
The people used to be able to go to one doctor and get a pain medication, go to another doctor who doesn't know the first one and get a pain medication, go to a third one, right? Yeah. And you keep going to these different doctors. Well, you get these things filled at different pharmacies, but the pharmacies didn't talk to each other, so they never knew. Now they do. So anyway, there's big changes there.
Now, but it's quite a leap to go from people that may, like you say, had an injury and then got hooked on opiates, and then they happen to be a licensed pilot. Do you think? I'm sure. I can't imagine the industry would go for this, but is it enough of a problem that should there be crazy? Should you be subject to a random lottery blood check if you're a pilot?
I knew you were going to go there, and of course not. This is not the way that it should go. It's not.
And I don't think it's rampant in aviation. Who knows, right?
Well, I do. And I'm going to tell you that the reality is pilots are part of our population. Our population has a certain percentage of people who engage in various things. I mean, how many people, give me a show of hands. How many people out there drink from time to time? Yep, right. And is there anything wrong with drinking from time to time? Hell no, as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing wrong with a bucket of suds on a nice hot summer's day if you're not going anywhere, if somebody else is driving, Right. I mean, that's the big thing. You can't be in control of any machinery, and you can't be in control of anybody's lives or well-being. So if you're going to mitigate your ability to respond, which is my term that I use when I talk about response ability to folks and kids, I'm talking about being able to react to situations. And if you're impaired by any means, hell no. However, what you're leading at is how many of us participate in stuff. In other words, now that pot is becoming legal, and people are, finally, it's like when Prohibition was lifted, everybody started to drink their butts off, and it got out of hand and never really got back in control. We've had 70 years to study alcohol, right, John?
Yeah, right. That's right.
But because pot has been illegal, there hasn't been many, or recently there has, but up until about 20 years ago, there was not a lot of research on pot. I mean, they were growing it for hemp, and there was a lot of stuff that was, found to be, beneficial. But now that it's kind of legal, or more states are making it legal, and folks are smoking, they're trying to figure out ways to determine, when are you intoxicated? When are you too intoxicated to, say, drive? And, of course, let's start and end the conversation with, do I think that it's okay to fly while stoned? And I'm sure most of you are laughing, and you should be. And the answer is hell no.
Yeah,
Absolutely hell no.
Anything that impairs your judgment in any way.
Triple hell no with the, what the hell are you even trying to bother asking me that question?
Yeah.
And
I even question sometimes the 8 hours bottle to throttle rule. I mean, I know that it's kind of out of your system, but tell me, if you had a couple of drinks and then let's say a couple of beers and 8 hours later you fly, okay, you might have but what if you really got hammered and then you haven't had a drink for 8 hours? Your judgment's going to be off. You're going to be, flying is it should be a very sober. You got to be clear-headed for this stuff, and we hope everyone out there takes it seriously.
My God. Okay, guys, I just want you to use this. This is stupid alcohol math. You ready? Your body metabolizes alcohol, which means that it burns it off. So if you have one beer is about 0.02. You have two beers, this is regular, 8-ounce can of beer. You have a second can of beer, that's 0.02. That means 4. You have a third can of beer, that's 0.02. That's 6, right? If you have a fourth can of beer, if it's 0.02, that's 0.08. 0.7999 is the limit. 0.08 is over the limit, right? So in the United States. Now, here's the interesting thing. I say this is generalized numbers. How many beers do most people drink during an experience? Well, the first one goes down pretty quick. Here, have a beer. You pop it, and if it's a nice hot summer's day, that may go down in the first 5 or 10 minutes. Then you have another beer. That second beer lasts about 10 to 15 minutes. Then the third beer can, some of us hold on to it for quite a while. But my point being, you burn off 0.02 in an hour. So if you've had 4 beers in 1 hour, you are then going to be at or over the legal limit to drive.
Right.
But if you do not have any more alcohol the following hour, you've already eliminated 0.02 from your system. So you're now 0.06. So you're drinking, it's adding to the level, but as time goes on, it's taking away from the level. So if you're at a party and you're packing it away, and your blood alcohol level is, now remember, 0.08 is, 3 or 4 beers. It depends on the size of the beer. And it depends on the alcohol content. Stella Artois.
And the size of the person.
And Stella Artois versus Coors. Yeah. And it's the size of the person, how much they drank, how much they ate, how their metabolism is. Listen, John, if you're at a big Italian restaurant, you have this big meal, and then you do a few shots, you know where that alcohol goes? On the top of your stomach. It takes longer to metabolize. You're absolutely right. And if you're a 100-pound girl who's had nothing to drink, and you do a couple of shots, zoom, bang, to the moon, Alice.
Yeah, right.
15 minutes later, you have quite a buzz. You're absolutely right. Weight, metabolism, size of the person, the food, all these things. But this is stupid math, and this is what I ask people to consider this. You're out partying, you're doing shots, and you're drinking, or you're just doing a lot of drinking, and you finally quit. Let's say you quit drinking 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Now, if your blood alcohol is like 230 or 260, if your metabolism 0.02 an hour, and you get up at 8 in the morning, say it's midnight, that's only 160 from the 280. You with me? I mean, you're still got a lot of alcohol in your system. Yeah. You're still over the legal limit. I mean, Listen, yes, it's all different. And there are people sitting here going, what are you talking about? But I just want you to go online, look at the alcohol calculators, look at metabolism. So, guys and girls, I want you to understand that Jon's point of 8 hours bottle to throttle is a rule of thumb as a gauge for you to start thinking sensibly, because you need to be sharp. And by the time you get behind the stick, if you're hung over, please. Really?
Yeah, that's just it.
Really?
You can certainly be where you're not affected by the actual buzz of liquor, but like you said, you could just have that headache and you're just logy, and but I guess if 8 hours is enough time where you're not really under the influence, but you still could be under the influence of a hell of a headache. But so.
Well, you're absolutely right.
But flying is you fly. You even think about flying. I mean, not to mention your pre-flight, your weather briefing. You better be on your game. You don't want to just miss something stupid because you're spacey. But so drugs and look at the worst case scenario. This guy here killed himself. He was way over the typical. I took a little too much of this or a little too much of that. But I mean, boy, it's only, you'd almost say that looking what he did, he almost wanted to go up and he was just going to screw around. He didn't care what happened. Because at that point, after having all those drugs in your system, to fly an airplane is absolutely insane,
It is. So let's pare it down. Let's think about, okay, if I'm on antidepressants or if I'm taking ADHD medication or if I'm on any other medication that's going to impact our ability to think clearly, this is where you need to do the I am safe safety check. And, guys, it's amazing. I have, I'm 63. I've gotten to the airport to go flying with somebody, and I just either had a rough night or I was called out and I had to do an assessment at the, I can't go back to sleep after 2 a.m. It's just ridiculous. And when I get called out to do an assessment or do crisis, and I show up at the airport at 9 to 10 in the morning, and I'm wrung out like an old rag, I'm like, no, this ain't going to happen. So I've rescheduled. Hey, listen, let's take a little break here, and a word from our sponsors, and we shall return. Plane Talk is brought to you by M0A.com. Pass your check ride or he'll pay for it. Jason Shapper's got a wide selection of aviation education programs online, from your private pilot to your commercial and instrument. Remember, a good pilot is always learning. M0A.com. And our friends at FreeFlightSystems.com, makers of a wide variety of ADSB, radar, WAS, GPS memory management, and jet call decoders. Free Flight Systems. Okay, we are back, and thank you all very much. Thank you, M0A, Jason, and thank you guys at Free Flight for all of your help. Certainly appreciate that. So. I just had an annual. How much does it cost to get an annual down where you are? What's the local mechanics hourly rate?
Oh, I wouldn't even know, Howie. I'm not an owner. Yeah.
Okay, John. Well, it's time for a little homework. Sorry, folks. And I guess is there? Oh, John, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because I thought I'd talk about my annual.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, no, I'm good. I know we wanted to cover the what can happen in worst case scenario when drugs and aviation, they just don't mix. Period. End of story. Just don't screw around like that.
Well, hallelujah to that. So let's get to. I just want to briefly talk, and we'll just spend about 10 minutes on this and wrap it up, John. I want you guys to think about.
I have heard horror stories about annuals, and I've heard them go from just several thousand to tens of thousands.
Well, getting my annual in my Cherokee, for those of you that don't know, I bought a Cherokee a couple of years ago, and the very mechanic who had been servicing the airplane for years with the previous owner was the same guy to look at it when I took over the aircraft. And everything was fine, and I flew it for a few months. Then the annual under my ownership came up, and he gives me a call and says, "I got bad news for you. The cam lobe on the number 2 cylinder is all worn down to nothing." And it just happened overnight. So while they were in there, they found that the crank had a crack in it. So, and all the cylinders, the pistons failed inspection. The rods failed inspection when we brought it to the engine guy. And so I had to rebuild engine. But the point is, there are ways that you can save money. I don't know where you are, but mechanics rates fluctuate depending on where you are in the country. And one of the things that I wasn't given the luxury of doing, and this is, I love Dan, my mechanic. He's a great guy, my satanic mechanic, Dan, who's just he's Johnny on the spot. Listen, everybody, I'm just thrilled to have him based on the campus. So, and there's not a lot of people walking around the campus in the winter, and Joe Harper, my buddy, and co-owner, my plane, and I are pretty much at our hangar a lot, and we see Dan around a lot. And so, he's been happy with a jump or with a grease gun or something like that, and it's great to have him. But I intended on doing my own brakes and taking all the inspection covers off, taking the seats out, and doing all that stuff. But I got a text from him. "Oh, yep, did your annual." I said, "Oh, you did? Thanks, Dan. Thank you." And he didn't find anything needing attention, but it's like, okay, well, I paid him for his time to do the things that I could have done. But anyway, that was kind of a shame. But what can I tell you? The more you pay attention to the airplane, the more you're going to know, or you're going to search and find out and try to not have those surprises. Everybody hates those surprises. But anyway.
Oh,
but seeing that you don't know anything about that, I guess there's nowhere to go with this conversation.
Yeah, no, I don't really. Other than I've known that it's crazy expensive. You have to do it, of course. You want to be safe. You want your plane to be safe.
No, you have to. It has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done. And many people, like you say, will buy a plane. They get a good deal on, and then they find out a few months later when there was an annual that, well, maybe this is why I got a good deal, because it needed some work at the annual. And there's no way that the pilot, I don't think, can ever anticipate exactly. You just can't know. You have to be an A. You have to be an A and P, and you have to really look at it. So you can't buy a plane and judging by the year, right? You can't tell by, well, it's a 14-year-old airplane. It's got 1,500 hours on it. I'm going to be needing this soon. It's not as predictable as a car.
Yeah, but there are expected things. I mean, you can tell when rings are going, your compression is going in the cylinders. Although it's funny because I recently learned that in spite of having lower compression, the aircraft can still put out the expected horsepower, which was interesting for me to learn. But anyway, yeah, you're right. But there are a number of things you can do. The brakes, right? The brakes are going. You can do the brakes yourself.
Right.
Tires, of course, you can do yourself. That was another thing. Dan put in a new tire, and I had an old tube, and the feeder tube, the nipple cracked, and which let all the air out. And it's not the kind of thing you can readily see. And I was really confused because I thought it was only a couple of years old. But I did, But I got the tube from somebody instead of from a retailer, and the question is, how old was that tube? Had it been in the sun, right? Had it degraded?
Right.
Anyway, I learned the hard way that there's a reason for buying different quality products. Anyway. Right.
Plus, I do understand from people I've known with planes that an unused plane can be much more expensive to maintain than one that you correct. If you're a plane that's sitting on the ramp for like months at a time, and that can get very costly. That they say that the planes that fly a lot, I guess they stay lubed, the parts are moving. Generally, are going to be, less of a problem, less of an expense.
Why do you think?
Well, I would say, for reasons like, rubber dries out, parts dry out, filters, the fuel sitting in the lines, just sitting there. They're made to be used, right? I mean, same thing with anything mechanical. I think that applies to a car as well. You don't want to have a car sitting outside for months at a time and you never start it,
And I'm sitting here and John's seeing a bobblehead. I'm just acknowledging everything he's saying. John, you're absolutely right. One of the proof in the pudding of that is 10 years ago I belonged to a flying club and we had a cute little 172. And making a very long story short, there was a fellow who used it, and I knew that it was the flying club was being dismantled. And I turned to the guy and I said, "Whatever you do, don't put the e-brake on. Put the chocks, tie it down, no e-brake." Well, about a year later, the owner of the airplane, I meet him in one of the other hangars, and he complains that the brakes had seized. So whoever had used the airplane put the e-brake on, and of course they seized. And John, you're absolutely right. Corrosion builds up on cables.
Oh,
if cables aren't used, they get fragile. Of course, when you're using something and you're looking at it often, like we do in our pre-flight, you're going to be watching a tire. You're going to be seeing if it's getting cracked. That tire's too damn old anyway. The tire needs to be replaced. But old fuel, absolutely right. Oil settling in the bottom of cylinders, clogging spark plugs, things like that. You're absolutely right. Switches. With switches, one of the nice things about using manual switches, when you use them often, what are you doing? You're letting the contacts rub against the metal, and it's keeping corrosion from building up. And that's one of the things. That's absolutely right. So by going through the motions and pulling your circuit breakers and pushing them back in, turning the dials, the knobs, the switches, you're keeping corrosion from building up. When you fly on a regular basis, you're listening to the engine. You know the engine's song. You can start, if you're attentive to that kind of thing, and us as musicians pay absolute attention to that. And I'm going to tell you that I don't need to look at my tachometer to tell you what my RPM are. I can hear it. I know. Hear it, Of course I know. Yeah. We all know what I'm talking about. So you're absolutely right. Aircraft that sit, hangar beauties, what are they called, trailer queens, you're out for big problems. Now, here's an interesting thing. I have a friend that's looking to buy a 182, and it's an old workhorse. The thing is, the aluminum, it's a East Coast airplane. The aluminum is starting to pit from the inside out. Now, I've seen aircraft, and there was a fella down here trying to sell a 172 that when you look at it from 40 feet away, it's gorgeous. And as you walk forward to it, you start to see that it's rattle-canned paint. And he didn't really do a good job taping off windows and chrome either. And then when I poke my nose in the airplane and I go behind the back seat to look at the interior, and sure enough, the aluminum was, starting to, a lot of oxidation and a lot of, it starts to break apart. So little dots, little specks. So anyway, there was lots of reasons why I didn't want to continue looking at that plane.
And I would think, how in your case, you have a partner that you share. I would think that's a good thing because again, it keeps the plane from sitting there. And I know some people that have 2, 3, even four
partners, people
sharing a plane, and that way, so the plane's always moving. So you always turn the fuels over. You're always turning.
Absolutely right. And that's the virtue of that.
Yeah, so that's
having partners, having different sets of eyes. You get in your routine of checking out different things, and then I'll get in my routine of checking out different things. Of course, I hope that we're both checking out the same primary instruments, the same things to look over, but we'll be looking at them in different ways.
Right.
I'm going to tell you this. One of the things that keeps coming up, because it happened to me, I lost my gear on the starboard side of my aircraft. And By the way, I met a kid just last week. Same thing happened to him in a Cherokee. Same thing.
Really?
Yep, but he found the broken bolt. His bolt had broken.
Oh, okay.
In the scissor jack.
Yeah.
So, but they've never been able to find the bolt or the crown nut for my airplane. But the thing is, when you do pre-flight your airplane, have you flown in an Archer or a?
Yes.
Okay, with wheel pants. Can you remember?
She's like, yeah, I think it had wheel pants. Yes.
Well, I'll say, and I'm sure folks will all be nodding. When
a lot of them did.
When you're doing your pre-flight, if you want to look at the brake pads on most of these Archers, there is a panel, a flap that you can lift up, which only gives you access to the air tire, the air side of the tire. To look at the meat of the brakes, you got to take the pants off.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's true. You can't see. You cannot see.
Even in my 63 Cherokee, although they're not fancy pants, they don't have the ankle portion that comes up. They're just the round bottom part.
Yeah.
In order to look at the meat, it's not there. And if you've got that on, where is the bolt in the scissor jack? Hidden by the pants.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So even the best, even the most thorough, review, unless you're going to be taking the wheel pants off, which you're not going to do that for the pre-flight. But
no, you're not. Oh, and it's actually not part of the pre-flight, but
right.
Yeah.
But that's something, here, this is one of the things that you need to start talking about, okay, geez, well, when do you look at that stuff? During the annual. Oh, okay. Well, then you should probably take the pants off your plane once every quarter, eyeball it. You want to grease it up anyway. And I'm going to tell you, putting the covers on the grease nipples is a big deal so you don't get dirt in it. Making sure there's enough grease that it comes out, that it actually works its way into the plates. There's actually a bearing plate, if you will, in between the two pieces of jack. And you need to get grease in that as well. But anyway, there's a lot of things that you should and can do by yourself as far as the annual is concerned. And, I'm hoping that, we can start getting more communication on the Facebook page. For those of you who haven't before, we've IMC Radio is the Facebook page that we're using. There's another one, the IMC Club International, but that's for Radek's venture. The IMC podcast is going to be on IMC Club Radio on Facebook. So we're going to migrate out here. I'm going to ask everybody to do me a favor and please tell one person about this show. Send the link to one person. Let's grow this sucker. We've got a nice following. Got to say, it's pretty good. Now that we're back in the swing and we're going to be doing it religiously, we are soon to be live on Facebook. We tried it before. We're going to get that going, and we're going to be having live guests on. So please do me a favor. Go to IMC Club Radio on Facebook, and give us a little a shout about what it is that you would like to see us cover on the podcast.
Sounds good.
Hey, big shout out to Derek Legacy. Hey, you hear that Derek proposed to his lovey, John?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't do it. Run.
Yeah, no, that's great. He's a great guy. He's done a lot in a short time. He's really, he's all about aviation.
Oh, and he's up to the regionals now, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
You rock.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, Derek. Thank you for your for your love of aviation. We will be talking about Sun and Fun coming up. Everybody's starting to make plans. IMC Radio is going to be on the back deck of Sun and Fun Radio this year again. Radek Vizikowski will be out in the EAA booth doing his thing. Please come on by and say hi. You can reach me at, let's see. You can reach me at hm4499 at gmail.com. That's HM, like Howie Marlin, 4499 at gmail.com. Let me know if you're going to be out at Sun and Fun. It'd be great to catch up and, love to hear your story. And the real good chance, getting you on the program or getting your story on a later program as well. Big shout out to Joe Harper, my trauma nurse buddy and partner in my airplane. Of course, to our friends out there at Free Flight Systems, a maker of the Ranger ADSB system, cost-effective ADSB solutions, and they make a whole mess of other stuff. And, of course, Jason Schaffert at M0A. Big shout-out to Jason. Jason, I've been I'll talk to you later about my progress with the with the IFR training. I've been marching along swimmingly. And big shout out to Richard Chamberlain. Richard Chamberlain, my buddy with the twin-engine Baron little commuter plane out there down in Florida, and who comes up to fly here in the Vineyard in the summer. John, you want to shout out to anybody?
No, I just want to say sorry we couldn't get Radek on today. Radek, we miss you, and we want to wish the best to you. And I'm sure we'll see you back here on the 19th. Monday the 19th at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And everybody just fly safe, and we'll catch you soon.
Well, on behalf of... who's this? What's it say? We just had the Legal Beagle give her shouts. On behalf of John King Roberts, Radek Vizikowski, and I'm Max Gross, asking you all to fly safe, do a nice pre-flight, make sure you check in with Flight Watch, keep the sun in your face, and sweet tailwinds to you guys. We'll see you on the flip side. Howie out.
You got it, Jon and Max. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You guys come up there one day. You'd enjoy it. You'd enjoy the show. Quarter land, 33 right. Thank you very much.